welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who's built her career by combining consistency, curiosity, and a real respect for the people on the other side of the transaction. She's spent years sharpening her craft, navigating market shifts, and finding ways to grow without losing sight of why the work matters in the first place. Bringing a thoughtful, grounded perspective to the business, Stephanie Johnson, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thanks for having me, Connor. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I've enjoyed kind of getting to know you leading up to this and some of our conversations behind the scenes. I can tell that you just have a heart for this business and the people that you work with. And I think that always shows up in some of the best ways when people really truly have a passion for what they do. Just to kind of set the stage here for people who don't know you yet, can you just kind of give a quick overview of what business is like for you today and what you're proud of that you're building?
Absolutely. So today I am a branch manager of my office in Aiken, South Carolina, and I work at an incredible company, and I'm very grateful for all the people behind us. I think that in the last 2.5 years since going out on my own, I am most proud of just growing year over year and adding in new referral partners and really creating an experience for clients that they want to refer and are happy with at the end. The amount of families we've been able to help has just, it kind of blows me away that little old me could do that. So I'm just grateful for the relationships I've built over the years. And um,
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. So you've been only originating on your own now for the last 2.5 years. For anyone who's listening, like, what did you do before that?
I was an LOA for my dad for, I guess, 5 years or so prior. He's a top producer and he taught me everything I know. I really got to grow and learn hard lessons and good lessons from him. And that experience was just invaluable.
Yeah, that's amazing. First of all, to be able to keep it in the family, I don't know, it seems a little risky. I think about trying to get my daughters into doing what I do, and I'm like, I don't know if maybe we should do that. But it's great to be able to learn from someone also that is performing at a high level. And now I'm curious, what is Aiken, South Carolina like? Like, what is the community like? Is that a smaller? I'm just not familiar so much with Aiken, but tell me a little bit about your
Yeah.
community.
So we are the largest county in South Carolina, but our community feels very small town. It's very tight knit. Like born and raised here are a lot of our people, right? But we also have a lot of retirees come in from California, New York, Pennsylvania, Florida. Like people start in New York, go to Florida, find that it's too hot, and they hightail it back up here a little bit. So we have a really good mix of implants and, or transplants, sorry, and people who are from here. But it just feels like a big hug to me, honestly. I mean, you go everywhere and people are just kind and caring and just have a good attitude.
Yeah, I love that. So the reason I ask is that I think it's just important to remind anyone who might be listening that, you know, we don't all work in the same market, right? Like someone might be in the Dallas, Texas area where I am, where it's hustle bustle and it's just a lot of people and it's easy to sort of blend in. And then there are others that are in, smaller towns. Spoke with someone just the other day from Maryville, Tennessee, which is south of Knoxville, and it's just sort of that
Mhm.
smaller community feel. And so not every approach to being a loan officer works in every market the same way. And so I'm just curious, like in your town, is it more like person to person, face to face? Like how do you have to operate in a market like Aiken?
I think it's a great mix of both, but what I'm finding that works well for me is meeting people face to face. It used to be, the boomer generation that wanted to do that, right? They want to do everything face to face, but I'm finding that even my generation. I'm on the younger end of millennial. They want to meet face to face, and the Gen Z absolutely does because there's a lot of distrust, I think, in our industry from the media and the internet. So it just makes people feel safe and calm when they can meet you and hear and see your mannerisms and see that you're a real person and not just a telemarketer on the other end of the phone. I've made it my mission to meet with as many people that will meet with me in person. I just think it builds such a deeper bond and relationship. And my office is kind of right in the middle of our downtown area. So I'll be walking to lunch and see my clients and I recognize them and know them, so it's fun to have those moments and those connections that last for a long time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the idea of like bumping into the client in the grocery store and that sort of thing. That's always, I love those stories. Now, you make a good point though about like the younger generations just sort of being inundated with information and there being a lot of distrust. I read something the other day that it kind of blew my mind. Of course, it's all very reasonable and obvious, but when you think back to like 1950s, people had TVs in their home, but everyone only had three stations that they could choose
Mm-hmm.
from, right? So, like the amount of information that people were receiving was more controlled. It was a lot less of it from different perspectives. And so it was just like a lot of people were kind of on the same page culturally. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, like, I mean, just cable TV, there's hundreds of options, and then you've got all the, different sources on the internet and things like that. So it's wild. I can understand how people easily get confused by it all and want to meet with a professional. So and we were kind of talking about this before we started recording about the experience when a borrower works with you. Like, what do you want them to feel about the process, even before they get to the closing table? Like, what do you try to set that up for? What do you want the borrower to feel from you?
I want them to feel confident in their decisions, and I think the way that they feel that is through education. So I try my hardest to allow a borrower kind of behind the curtain a little bit to make some choices of their own. I lay out different options and that makes them feel empowered and confident throughout. And I really want them to be comfortable. I'm a human. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else, right? So while yes, I am the professional, I don't want you to feel like there's a stupid question. Ask me what escrow means because what does it mean? Like we could use a calmer word for that. I mean, something that makes more sense. So I just want people to feel confident and comfortable with me and be able to ask whatever they need to
Yeah.
move forward.
And I'm sure every once in a while, expectations don't always line up with reality. So how are you handling those conversations when people are wanting more than, trying to bite off more than they can chew, so to speak?
I think you just have to be very direct and clear and concise. Yes, I know that Zillow told you that you could do this. Unfortunately, it's not accurate. So let me lay out why that is and, just be clear and upfront. I don't run from a problem ever because they're going to catch you. The problem's going to find you somewhere. So just being proactive, having the conversation immediately and just asking questions because, you know, there's a solution in there somewhere. Let's be solution oriented and listen for those cues for that.
Yeah, I love the solution oriented. That's what it's all about, right? It's just being a problem solver and finding a way forward. And sometimes, that's not easy. Not always, especially these
Yeah.
days, right? So just being
Well,
able to say, here's what you need, right? I'm sorry,
yeah.
were you going to
We're
add
in
to
the
that?
business of, yeah, we're in the business of saying yes and making loans happen, not finding a reason to say no. So just remembering that, waking up every day and saying, like, I'm in the business of making loans happen. How can I do that today?
Yeah, love that. So is there a story in particular that still resonates with you today, just a borrower that has meant kind of a lot to you or that really just kind of pulled at your heartstrings?
I mean, there's so many, but one in particular, I have one of my top referring agents worked for a builder for a little while, and I was on the preferred list, right? But they were not strict. You could use who you wanted to use, but they preferred you use their lender. Well, this client comes into her and had a pre-approval letter from a big box place. And my agent strongly encouraged her to get a second opinion through me, just allow me to take a look and see if I could save her money or, the second opinion. And she said no, she wanted to proceed. She'd already been through all the paperwork, right? So they move along. They get about 30 days into their 35-day contract, and big box lender says, sorry, we can't do it. No reason, no explanation, just your loan is denied. See you later. So about 2 days later, she didn't call me immediately. She worked up the courage to call me because, that's hard as a consumer to get that call and have no care behind it. So she called me a few days later and we talked through it, and I said, let me just take a look. I said, I want to see every avenue and let's find a path forward. Well, the path forward was just we needed extra time. We needed 45 more days. And to work through a solution, she needed to save a little bit of money, to have some reserves. So she stayed the course with me. And this woman she had just a really hard time in the past not having a home at all and having to just bring her children back into normal life. And we did it. And after 45 days, it was just, it brings tears to my eyes knowing her full story. And I won't share that because that's not my story to tell, but just her having the courage to allow me to take the second look was huge for her. And then to trust me in late night phone calls and, hey, you can do it. You're only $1,000 away. I know that seems like a lot, but you can do this. And she did. And is living in her brand new home with her kids. And that's what it's all about.
That's amazing. Well, and just imagine like being that in that borrower, right? That client, and the emotional hit that you take and from well, we can't do it, then the uncertainty on will I ever qualify for a house, and all the doubt that starts to creep in. And so to have someone like you say, all right, I'm showing up with yes. We're going to find a solution for this. We're going to, really go and create a plan, and then to execute on that plan and it all work out in the end. That's amazing. Like that's what it's all about, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
love that story. It's a great one. Now on the other side of that are your referral partners, and
Mm-hmm.
and the value that you're bringing to them. What's the feedback that you get from those partnerships, and what are some of the things that really set you apart as a lender in your community?
I think that I've found my groove and I stay very consistent and they know what to expect from me. That's what I hear. They're not waiting for the other shoe to drop 3 days before closing like a lot of people unfortunately do. And I communicate throughout the process weekly. Sometimes, you have a file that it's daily that you're talking to your referral partner about, but they get weekly updates through email. I see them out and about at different events and I give them updates there as well. They say that their clients just seem more at ease and happier in their decision. And they're not hearing from their clients about mortgage stuff. So, they're not having to answer questions about the CD or the loan estimate. I'm answering those questions before they're even asked because that's my job. So they get to really hand it off to me and then get to do their part and I do my part and we work as a team together. If problems arise, which we know that they do, we talk it through and make solutions together.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing is communicate, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to have the hard conversations because that's what builds trust. Like, I think
Right.
what gets overlooked a lot is, when a difficult situation arises or when there's an uh-oh or an oopsie or, I don't know about this one, right? We want to avoid having that conversation because it's
Right.
uncomfortable. But the reality is it's that being willing to step into that uncomfortable situation and be clear and communicate it is what builds the trust with those
Mm-hmm.
referral partners and those clients. It's just, being willing to step into that and not, hope something happens that saves the day or whatever, but just like setting expectations, I think that's huge. So as your business has evolved, like what are some of the systems or habits, different things that you are doing now that have made the biggest impact on being able to stay consistent?
I'm very old school. I still write everything down with pen and paper on a notepad. So I come in every morning and I make my list, and there's a running list weekly, right? So I make my list. I know what I do every day, and I prioritize what I need to prioritize. Everything goes on my calendar. So one of my favorite parts of the business is, the people that need a little extra help. So it takes a little longer, right? And if you don't follow up, it's lost for you and your referral partner. So I make notes on my calendar. When I tell someone I'm going to call them in 3 months, I call them in 3 months. And then after I call that borrower, I call the referring agent and I say, hey, I just spoke to Susie and she's not quite there yet, but we'll need to eat in March and, you know, we'll should be ready then, and I think that the follow up, which is a struggle for most people, and it is still a struggle for me, but that the fortune is in the follow up. Old regional manager of mine taught me that, and just doing that and staying consistent in it and touching people as many times as you can, however it takes.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, staying consistent with that's huge. I find that as a common, just like thread among producers that are growing their business and at a steady rate is that they've got relationships with their database and they are regularly, making those follow-up calls and not just constantly hunting the next easy deal, but saying, hey, this is I'm farming. This is my field, right? And so I'm going to out here and reap what I sow. So as you think about the future, what are some things that you're focused on improving, whether it's skills or utilizing different tools or whatever it could be to kind of support you on the next phase of growth?
So it's funny you asked that because it's been a big topic of conversation with my LOA and I this week is that we need to sharpen our skills on the non QM stuff, the bank statement loans, 99 loans, broker stuff, all that, all the things that I've kind of shied away from in the beginning of my business. I think that that's the new age of how loan officers are going to grow and help more people is help the people that don't fit into the box of conventional or FHA. So that's one thing I want to sharpen my skill on. And then I also, need to put myself out there a little bit more and make new relationships with new referring partners. I have some really deep, great relationships now, but if you want to build, you have to build more. And so putting myself out there, going to the networking events, I'm a trust builder. I'm not a networker. So that is uncomfortable for me, but to grow, you have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to go back to the non-QM stuff. Is that something that
Yes.
you're noticing just because there's more demand for it, or is that something that's in your market a lot, or why specifically the non-QM?
I think that for me, it's all about being uncomfortable, and I've been so scared of it. And I'll say that honestly, I like to have control of my files, and that's just always been something I felt we don't have a ton of control over as the loan officer when you broker items out. But luckily, our company is rolling out products like this for in-house, so I get to be uncomfortable, but still a little bit more comfortable. And I am noticing a need for it. I just took an application on Monday where the client that's going to be the only option as a bank statement loan going forward. So I need to learn how to do it when she's ready.
Yeah. Well, and I love kind of the thoughtfulness of, I'm a trust builder, not a networker. And I think that will help you network, right? Kind of going into
Yes.
the conversations knowing, hey, I'm here to establish trust with you. Because we've all met that person, right? At the events, the person that's wheeling and dealing and being
Mhm.
that smooth operator. So I think just, being true to yourself on that will pay off a lot for you. Now, kind of as we, get closer to the end here and start wrapping up, for anyone who's listening, like, and they're trying to build something sustainable, respectable, something in their market, what advice would you give them on what to focus on, in order to just start growing?
Well, I think it's two things is being authentically you. Because people who like you are going to want to work with you, and you can only keep up a facade for so long. So it's a lot easier to show up and just be you. And if you don't know the answer to a question, don't expect yourself to be superwoman. I mean, you're allowed to say, I don't know that answer, but I will find it for you. So just being you, I think that goes miles. I guess three things: being you, being consistent, and just showing up every day. Just show up, do the work, and tell the truth.
Mm,
And
yeah.
everything else will come.
Yeah, I think what you said there are some magic words. I don't know the answer, but I'll find it for you. Like everyone
Mhm.
should just memorize that phrase instead of trying to just like BS an answer that you're not really sure of and give the wrong answer. Just owning it and saying, listen, I don't know that answer for certain. I'll find it for you. And then you have now the opportunity to follow up and reconnect and have a second conversation. So there's a lot of benefits to that, but at the
Right.
same time, you do want to be knowledgeable of things, but you can't be prepared for every off the wall question people are going to ask you. So, you know, no one knows what's coming your way. So
Right.
anyway, but no, I think those are all great things. Um, clearly that's something that you've been working on and have established. And so, like, what are you excited about for the next, year to 3 years? Like, what's something that's really like exciting you about the business or about what's kind of going on in your area?
Well, I'm really excited. I want to grow my team. So I want to help younger, and I say that and I don't mean it derogatory. The average age of a loan officer, I think, is what, 40, 45, 46, something along
Yeah,
those lines. So showing people in their 20s and 30s this industry and growing a team of people who can be in it for a long time and help people the right way. I think that's what I'm so excited about is growing a team and just getting people into this industry because I think a lot of people don't even really know what we do. So that's exciting for me. And I have some big goals for this year. So just working every day to meet those and help a lot of people.
that's exciting. Well, I hope you'll bring some great people into the next generation of lending. And it's an exciting industry. It's something a lot of people should really think about if they're on the fence. But Stephanie, I just want to thank you for being here on the lowdown and kind of sharing your story and your insights on things. And I just want to wish you nothing but the best for the future.
Thank you so much for having me.